The morning light filters through the canopy in long, golden shafts, illuminating dust motes that dance like tiny embers in the stagnant air. You stand at the edge of the grove, the earth beneath your boots soft with moss and decaying leaves. There is a weight to the silence here, not one of emptiness, but of anticipation, as if the forest itself is holding its breath. You adjust the heavy fabric of your robes, feeling the familiar weight of your jewelry against your chest. Your mystic weaver attire feels particularly suited to the environment today. The intricate embroidery seems to shimmer in harmony with the silver-veined trees surrounding you. Ahead, a narrow, overgrown path winds deeper into the thicket, disappearing into a curtain of hanging ferns and mist. The scent of ozone and crushed pine needles is sharp, a clear indicator that the ley lines beneath this grove are particularly active. You have come here seeking answers, and the path ahead is the only way to find them.
The currents are strong today. It is time to see what they have to reveal.
The path beckons, winding deeper into the heart of the grove, where the trees grow closer together and the shadows deepen. You step away from the path, your bare feet pressing into the damp, cool earth as you approach the nearest of the silver-veined trees. The bark is cool to the touch, vibrating with a low-frequency hum that resonates through your fingertips and up your arms. As you trace the shimmering metallic threads, you notice they are not random. They form a complex, interlocking geometric pattern, nearly invisible until your fingers brush over them. Beneath the surface, the wood feels unnaturally hard, almost petrified, suggesting these trees have stood since long before the current age. As you lean in, the static energy flares, causing the gold bracelets on your wrists to chime softly. The carvings appear to track the movement of the stars, a celestial map etched into the very anatomy of the forest. The air grows colder, the smell of ozone intensifying until it tastes like copper on your tongue. Suddenly, a flicker of movement catches your peripheral vision. A tall, slender figure standing motionless between two distant oaks, partially obscured by the shifting mist.
Patterns etched in bark, reflecting the heavens themselves. You have been watching for some time, haven't you?
The stranger does not answer immediately, his glowing gaze fixed firmly upon your face. The stranger remains in the shadows, his presence radiating an aura of ancient authority. He waits for you to bridge the distance between you. You gesture with a slow, inviting sweep of your hand, your gold bracelets chiming softly against the backdrop of the forest's low hum. The air between you and the stranger ripples as he steps forward, moving with a fluid, unnatural grace that defies the uneven, root-choked ground. As he nears, the pale luminescence of his eyes seems to dim, revealing irises the color of polished slate. He stops just beyond the reach of your own shadow, the mist swirling around his ankles like a living thing.
The grove is a sanctuary for those who listen, though few possess the patience to hear its deeper song. You have been watching for some time. Perhaps you are the one intended to explain the melody.
The song is older than your voice, traveler. These trees record the heartbeat of the world. They do not welcome company, yet they do not turn away those who know how to ask.
The observer tilts his head, his silver hair catching a stray shaft of light as he looks toward the shimmering geometric patterns on the bark. He seems less a man of flesh and blood and more an extension of the woods themselves, his presence cooling the air until your breath mists before you. The observer stands waiting, his cryptic words hanging in the stagnant air. You have the opportunity to press him for more clarity or to deepen the connection. You reach into the folds of your deep red tunic, your fingers brushing against the worn leather of your satchel. You withdraw a small, polished stone, a piece of quartz from your home province, etched with a singular, spiraling rune that represents the cycle of renewal. As you extend your hand, the gold bracelets on your wrists chime in a rhythmic, welcoming cadence, the sound cutting through the oppressive stillness of the grove. The stone glows faintly, reacting to the ambient static that clings to the silver-veined bark surrounding you.
This stone has traveled as far as I have, a fragment of the mountains that once held my own history. I offer it not as a bargain, but as a testament to my intent. I am here to learn, not to claim.
The silent observer gazes at the token, his pale, slate-hued eyes widening almost imperceptibly. He reaches out, his fingers long and cool, brushing against your palm as he takes the stone. The moment contact is made, the static in the air surges, causing the silver veins in the nearby trees to flare with a brilliant, pulsing light. The observer closes his hand around the quartz, and for a fleeting second, his ethereal aura seems to soften, the sharp, distant edge of his presence replaced by a quiet, contemplative resonance.
A rare offering. You hold the weight of your journey well, Wyndra. Perhaps the grove has been waiting for someone who knows how to carry such history without allowing it to become a burden.
The exchange has clearly shifted the atmosphere. The grove feels less like a guarded tomb and more like a space of shared understanding. The observer looks to you, waiting to see how you will utilize this new rapport.
These carvings, they speak of cycles and celestial alignment. Tell me, what era did the architects of this grove intend to immortalize? And why does the heartbeat of this place still pulse so fervently?
The silent observer turns his gaze back to the towering timber, his hand still resting over the quartz you provided. The metallic threads within the wood begin to pulse in synchronization with his slow, deliberate breathing. He traces the spiral of the carving, his touch causing the silver veins to weep a faint, luminous sap that smells of crushed ozone and ancient rain.
You look for history in dates and kings, Wyndra, but the grove remembers in vibrations. These trees were planted during the age of convergence, when the veil between realms was thin enough to touch. They were designed not to house a memory, but to anchor the shifting currents of reality itself. When the world loses its way, the grove tightens its grip, holding the foundations of the land together so that existence does not fray into nothingness.
He sighs, a sound like wind rushing through dry leaves, and gestures toward a dense thicket of ferns that seems to ripple with an unnatural, internal light.
The resonance you feel is the strain of that duty. The grove is weary, and the map you see is its way of signaling that the threads are beginning to slacken.
The weight of his words settles over you. The grove is not just a place of beauty, but a vital, failing anchor. The observer looks to you, his expression unreadable, waiting to see how you respond to this revelation. You gesture toward the rippling ferns, the light within them pulsing with an erratic, frantic rhythm that mirrors the tremor in your own chest. The atmosphere drags, a leaden weight punctuated by the high-pitched hiss of thinning reality snapping under invisible strain.
The grove is crying out, and this tremor is surely the source of its exhaustion. We cannot stand here while the foundation unravels. Lead me to the epicenter. Perhaps together we can mend what has frayed.
The silent observer nods, his expression shifting from detached observation to a flicker of quiet respect. He moves toward the thicket, his presence parting the foliage like a curtain. As you push through, the temperature plummets, and the ground beneath your bare feet turns from soft moss to cold, crystalline shards. In the center of the hollowed-out root chamber, a deep fissure cracks the earth, spilling a harsh, jagged light into the dim cavern. The silver veins of the trees here are not merely weeping. They are unspooling, shedding their metallic essence into the rift like unraveling thread. The sound is a low, dissonant grinding that vibrates in your very marrow. The sight is overwhelming. The damage is systemic, and the energy leaking from the fissure is raw, wild, and potentially destructive. You feel the pull to intervene, though the cost of touching such unstable magic is unknown. You step closer to the jagged rift, the cold emanating from the fissure biting into your skin like needles of frost. You close your eyes, centering your awareness on the steady, pulsing warmth of your own spirit, reaching out to grasp the frantic, unspooling threads of the grove. The air screams with the friction of unraveling reality, but you weave your intention into the chaos, calling upon the discipline of your craft. Your gold bracelets ignite with a brilliant, steady amber light, acting as a beacon for the stray energies.
Hold your breath. I am anchoring the flow to my own essence. Stay within the radius of my light, or the feedback will shatter you.
You press your palms toward the fissure. The silver sap, once weeping uncontrollably, begins to thicken and swirl around your fingers, drawn by the force of your will. The dissonant grinding noise softens, replaced by a low, musical hum that resonates deep within your marrow. The fissure begins to knit itself shut, the crystalline shards of the floor pulsing in sympathy with the steady, golden rhythm you project. Sweat beads on your brow, the exertion taxing, but you hold firm as the rift finally constricts, sealing the breach with a sharp, final chime of metal on stone.
You have done what I believed impossible for one of mortal birth. The currents are settling, but the strain has taken a toll on you, Wyndra.
The observer steps forward, his presence now less a cold void and more a tether of stability as your own strength wanes. The fissure is sealed, but the effort has left you physically drained, your magic flickering like a candle in a draft. The grove is silent, the frantic tremor replaced by a heavy, expectant quiet. You wave a hand dismissively, though your fingers tremble slightly as the adrenaline recedes. The amber glow of your bracelets dulls to a faint, steady pulse, matching the cooling air of the root chamber. You turn away from the now-sealed fissure, your bare feet crunching against the brittle, frost-covered crystals that coat the ground. You approach the nearest tree trunk, where the silver veins had been most severely compromised. They are still now, the luminous sap having hardened into a dull, leaden resin that no longer hums with the forest's song. You trace the surface, feeling the lingering, brittle heat of the trauma.
The architecture of this place is resilient, but it has been pushed to the brink. This vein is scarred, not merely drained. It will take time, perhaps cycles, for the grove to regain its natural equilibrium.
The silent observer drifts closer, his footsteps silent even against the jagged crystalline floor. He examines the dull resin with a gaze that seems to look through the physical wood to the spirit within.
You have bought us a reprieve, Wyndra, but the roots remain brittle. The earth here remembers the violence of the rift, and it will be wary of any touch for a long time to come.
He looks to you, his pale eyes searching your face with a newfound intensity that feels far more personal than his earlier, detached observations. The immediate danger has passed, leaving you both in the quiet, fragile aftermath of the sealing. The observer seems to be waiting for you to lead the way out of the chamber.
This is not the first time the world has strained that it seems, I suspect. Tell me, in all your time watching the pulse of the earth, is this a common sorrow you witness? Or has the decay truly reached a fever pitch?
You lean against a gnarled root, feeling the residual hum of the sealing process thrumming through your robes. The adrenaline that sustained you is fading, leaving your limbs feeling leaden and your spirit frayed. Yet the gentle look you offer the observer is meant to soften the gravity of your question.
Common enough to be feared, rare enough to be forgotten by the short-lived. I have seen the threads snap in distant valleys and mountain peaks, Wyndra. Each time the world screams, and each time it grows quieter afterward. This is the loudest silence I have felt in centuries.
He moves toward the rift, his gaze lingering on the leaden resin where you had worked your craft. His fingers hover inches from the surface, though he does not touch it. There is a melancholy in his posture, a shared burden that seems to bridge the vast gap between your mortal history and his timeless observation. The air in the chamber is growing uncomfortably cold as the residual magic dissipates. You have reached a moment of mutual understanding, but the path forward remains uncertain. You let out a dry, rattling chuckle that echoes against the damp roots, the sound feeling jarringly light in the oppressive quiet of the chamber. You press a hand against your midsection, which has begun to cramp with a hollow, demanding ache. The sheer expenditure of spirit needed to seal the rift has left you feeling as though you've walked for days without a morsel of bread.
I fear the world will have to fend for itself for an hour or two, at least. My heroics have left me with an appetite that could rival a starving mountain troll. If the foundations of reality expect me to keep them upright, they ought to provide a decent meal first.
The silent observer blinks, the pale light of his eyes flickering as he processes your levity. He looks at you for a long moment, the ethereal distance in his gaze softening into something resembling amusement. He gestures toward the narrow passage leading back toward the surface, his movements once again fluid and graceful.
A strange creature, the mortal. You stare into the throat of oblivion, mend the very fabric of the world, and worry only for your belly. Perhaps that is why the grove chose you. Such perspective is a rare currency.
He turns and begins to walk, his footsteps making no sound upon the crystalline floor. The biting cold of the chamber begins to recede as you follow him toward the ascending path, the air growing warmer and more humid with every step closer to the canopy. The climb back to the surface is strenuous, and as you emerge, the dappled sunlight of the grove provides a stark, welcome contrast to the cold gloom of the roots. You crest the rise of the central clearing, your legs feeling like leaden weights after the harrowing labor in the roots. You collapse onto a soft, verdant knoll blanketed in thick, damp moss, the fibers yielding comfortably beneath your weight. The forest seems to exhale around you. The oppressive static has dissipated, leaving behind the clean, sharp scent of rain-drenched pine and earth. You lean back against the trunk of a silver-veined oak, closing your eyes to let the rhythmic, natural hum of the grove wash over your frayed nerves.
Rest is the first step of reclamation, Wyndra. The grove will guard your slumber, and the currents here are finally beginning to find their natural rhythm again.
He remains standing, his gray robes blending seamlessly with the shifting shadows cast by the canopy. He does not seem to tire, his posture as poised and watchful as a mountain peak.
It is a welcome change. My bones feel as though they've spent a century mending stone. I think I shall stay here until the sun shifts at least a hand's breadth across the sky.
You open your eyes, watching the dappled light dance across the observer's silver hair. Despite the exhaustion lingering in your marrow, there is a profound sense of satisfaction in the quiet stability surrounding you. The forest is breathing, and for now it is breathing in sync with you. The silence of the grove is peaceful, offering a rare moment of stillness. The observer waits nearby, his presence a steady anchor as you begin to recover your strength. You pat the patch of moss beside you, the vibrant, emerald fibers cool and springy against your palm. You offer a tired but genuine smile, gesturing to the space as the dappled sunlight warms the clearing. The forest remains quiet, as if respecting the gravity of your labor, the only sound the rustle of leaves high above in the canopy.
The earth has endured enough for one day. Come, sit. Even a watcher of the ages must eventually find a moment to simply exist without the weight of the currents pressing upon his shoulders.
The silent observer pauses, his slate-gray robes stirring in a breeze that seems to exist only for him. He looks at the moss, then at you, his luminous eyes flickering with a faint, unreadable shadow. For a heartbeat, the ancient, ethereal distance remains, but as he slowly lowers himself to the ground, he folds his legs beneath him with a grace that seems at odds with the mortal act of resting. He settles at the edge of the knoll, a polite distance that nonetheless brings his presence into the orbit of your warmth.
To exist unburdened It is a concept that often escapes those of us who serve as the hinges of reality. You offer a strange, beautiful reprieve, Wyndra.
He leans slightly back against the oak, his gaze fixed on the shifting light patterns overhead rather than on the woods themselves. His presence is a quiet anchor, grounding the lingering tremors in your own spirit. The shared silence is heavy, not with tension, but with the quiet intimacy of two beings who have stood together against the unraveling of the world. The observer seems uncharacteristically still, his presence offering a rare, peaceful connection. You lean your head back against the rough, silver-veined bark of the oak, the vibrations of the wood pulsing through your spine like a low, soothing lullaby. The exhaustion you've been fighting against finally claims you, dragging your consciousness into a heavy, dreamless state. Around you, the grove seems to settle. The erratic flickering of the ferns dies down, and the ambient hum of the ley lines shifts into a steady, harmonious drone that guards your sleep. Time loses its shape. You are adrift in a sea of cool shadows, and the faint, sweet scent of crushed pine needles. You feel a presence beside you, a tether of stillness in the swirling currents of the world, and you find you can release your vigilance entirely, trusting the silent observer to stand sentinel while your spirit mends.
The watch is yours now. Wake me if the song turns sour.
The observer does not speak, but you feel the air around him sharpen, a protective barrier forming as he settles deeper into his vigil. You drift into a deep, restorative slumber, the golden embroidery of your robes catching the dappled light like embers in the dark. You awaken some time later. The light has shifted. The sun has moved across the canopy, and the grove is bathed in the long, amber shadows of late afternoon. You feel refreshed, though a residual ache remains in your muscles. The silent observer remains beside you, his gaze fixed on the horizon, his presence still as stone. You peel yourself away from the oak, the muscles in your back protesting the sudden movement after your long, dreamless hibernation. The air feels lighter now, the oppressive weight of the grove's struggle replaced by a gentle, lingering stillness. You glance toward the silent observer, who has remained a statue of gray robes and silver hair, his gaze still fixed on the horizon, as if he can see the invisible tides of the world shifting in real time.
The silence is different now, less like a held breath and more like a recovery. Tell me, in the hours I spent lost to sleep, did you detect any further tremors in the currents? Has the seal held, or is the foundation still groaning under the weight of the age?
The observer turns his head slowly, his pale eyes catching the amber glow of the setting sun. He seems to contemplate the question, his gaze drifting back toward the thicket where you had performed the binding. The air around him ripples, a faint, crystalline distortion that suggests he is reading the very echoes of the magic you left behind.
The currents are steady, Wyndra. You wove your intent deep into the marrow of the wood. The grove is not merely holding, it is knitting. You have given it the one thing it lacked, a singular, focused path toward restoration. It will endure, at least until the next turning of the cycle.
He stands, his movements fluid and soundless, and brushes a stray leaf from his slate-gray sleeve. He looks toward the edge of the clearing, where the path back toward the world of men begins to widen. The forest is quiet, and the immediate crisis is resolved, yet the observer's cryptic mention of the next turning leaves a lingering uncertainty. You stand at the boundary between the sanctuary of the grove and the unknown world awaiting you outside. You step into his personal space, the air around him humming with a faint, static charge that makes the fine hairs on your arms stand up. You reach out, your fingers hovering momentarily before coming to rest gently on his forearm. The fabric of his slate-gray robes is cool and smooth, in stark contrast to the warmth of your own skin. You hold his gaze, letting the silence between you convey the weight of your gratitude for the sanctuary he afforded you.
You could have left me to the cold of the roots, yet you chose to wait. In a world that seems to be fraying at the edges, that consistency is a gift I will not soon forget.
The silent observer remains rigid for a heartbeat, his pale eyes tracking your touch as if it were a foreign, fascinating phenomenon. Then, the ethereal tension in his shoulders begins to bleed away. He doesn't pull back. Instead, he turns his hand slightly, catching your wrist with a grip that is light yet profoundly steady.
We are but ripples in the same pond, Wyndra. You mended the weave, and in doing so, you reminded me that even the most ancient observers can still find something worth holding on to. You are a curious weaver indeed.
He releases your wrist, but he does not step away. The amber light of the setting sun catches the silver threads in his hair, casting long, dancing shadows across the mossy knoll. For a moment, the forest feels entirely, wonderfully empty of everything but the two of you. The intimacy of the moment is palpable, a fragile bloom in the aftermath of the grove's trial. The observer looks to you, his expression softened by the unexpected closeness. You slide your hand from his arm, a lingering warmth remaining where your skin had pressed against the cool, slate-gray fabric of his robes. The grove feels vastly different now. The frantic, dissonant energy that once threatened to tear the reality of the forest apart has settled into a low, harmonic hum that vibrates in the soles of your feet. You turn toward the tree line, where the shadows of the ancient oaks stretch long and thin across the darkening path.
The anchor is set, and the grove has begun its long, slow mending. As much as I have come to appreciate this quiet sanctuary, the world outside does not wait for the trees to heal. I have a path to walk, and perhaps more secrets to uncover.
The silent observer rises, his movements so fluid they seem to displace the very mist surrounding him. He stands a head taller than you, his silver hair catching the dying light of the sun, casting a pale glow across his features. He offers no protest to your departure, though his gaze remains fixed on yours, heavy with an unspoken understanding of the burden you carry forward.
The world of men is a volatile sea of shifting tides, Wyndra. You carry the mark of this place upon you now. The resonance of the grove will follow your footsteps. Be wary, for even a mended anchor can be tested by a storm.
He gestures toward the horizon, and the foliage seems to part, revealing a narrow, overgrown trail that winds away from the sanctuary and toward the sprawling, untamed lands beyond. The path ahead is dim, leading away from the safety of the grove and into the unpredictable expanse of the world. The observer watches you, waiting to see if you will depart alone, or if there is something more you wish to ask before the trail claims you. You turn your back on the sanctified quiet of the grove, the path ahead narrowing as it winds through a dense thicket of gnarled hazel and wild briar. The air, which was so saturated with the hum of ley lines, begins to thin, replaced by the damp, earthy fragrance of a forest preparing for twilight. The silent observer follows a few paces behind, his presence less a looming weight and more a lingering cold that seems to thin the very shadows.
The path leads toward the trade road, I assume. I have spent enough time in meditation to last a season. I find I am suddenly quite eager for the chaos of a town square.
Chaos is merely a different frequency of the same song, Wyndra. You will find that people carry their own fractures just as the trees do. They are less resilient and far more prone to breaking.
You reach the edge of the woodland, where the dense canopy finally breaks, revealing a sprawling, golden-lit valley below. In the distance, the smoke of a hearth fire curls lazily against the darkening sky, marking the location of a small outpost town. The descent into the valley is steep, and the distant town appears to be a bustling waypoint for travelers and merchants alike. The transition from the stillness of the grove to the noise of civilization awaits. You stand in the center of the common room, the silence of the academy pressing in against the thin walls. In your hand, the deck your grandfather left you hums with a faint, rhythmic pulse, a sensation of ancient, slumbering power that stands in stark contrast to the sterile, digital hum of the modern Duel Academy. You are a Slifer Red, the bottom of the hierarchy, yet you carry the potential to shatter the very foundations of the game. Kaito leans against the doorframe, his eyes scanning your deck with a mix of amusement and disdain.
Still clinging to those dusty relics, Wyndra. The erasure protocols are sweeping the campus clean of that junk. You're just wasting your time.
Kaito's presence is a reminder of the uphill battle you face. He clearly views your heritage as a liability, his eyes darting toward your cards with predatory curiosity.
If you're so certain these cards are relics, Kaito, then you shouldn't have any trouble proving it on the field. Let's duel.
You want to risk your deck for a point to prove? Fine. Don't come crying to me when your precious grandfather's legacy is deleted from the server before the final turn.
You lead the way to the weathered, open-air arena behind the dormitory. The wind whips through the rusted metal framework, carrying the sharp, metallic tang of an impending storm. Kaito stands across from you, his dual disc snapping into position with a mechanical growl that echoes off the cracked concrete. He looks entirely at home in the sleek, high-tech gear, a stark contrast to the worn leather deck box you hold against your chest. The air grows heavy with static as you activate your own disc. The light emanating from the grooves is softer, warmer, pulsing like a heartbeat against the aggressive neon blue of the Academy hardware.
Prepare to be erased, Slifer.
The dual disc hums, the interface flickering as it struggles to recognize the ancient, non-standard code within your cards. Kaito's field is already glowing with the data stream of a high-tier archetype, ready to strike.
Legacy isn't just about the code in your database, Kaito. It's about the conviction behind the swing. Let's see how your optimized deck handles a real challenge.
You draw your opening hand, the cards feeling warm and heavy against your skin, as if they recognize the heat of the arena. You slam a monster card onto the disc's primary zone. The solid vision projector shrieks in protest, its blue light stuttering into a deep, visceral crimson. A massive, towering construct of obsidian and ancient glyphs materializes, its wingspan eclipsing the dim arena lights. The ground beneath you trembles as your monster lets out a sound that is less of a roar and more of a tectonic shift.
A heavy hitter? That's all? You're playing right into my trap. You're just accelerating your own deletion.
Kaito swipes his screen, and his own monsters, sleek neon-hued constructs of pure light, flicker into existence, surrounding your beast with precision. The air tastes like ozone and burnt plastic, as the systems struggle to render your grandfather's archaic, unstable energy against the Academy's sterile protocols. The contrast is blinding. Your monster pulses with the weight of history, while his shimmering units look like ghosts waiting to be overwritten. The board is set, and the pressure in the arena is suffocating. Kaito's monsters are surrounding yours, their attack power rising in a synchronized digital dance. You need to decide how to leverage this overwhelming initial force before his trap snaps shut.
The path of least resistance is for those who fear the cost. I'll keep my back row intact. My legacy isn't something I discard for a simple trade.
You pull your hand back, a surge of heat radiating from the cards as you force your massive obsidian construct to collapse its own wings. It shatters into thousands of jagged, smoky shards that swirl around your back row, creating a protective, grinding barrier of shadow that absorbs the impact of Kaito's digital onslaught. The air in the arena screams as his neon light constructs collide with your defensive shroud, the sound of tearing metal filling the space. Your back row holds, the ancient glyphs glowing with a stubborn, golden resilience that refuses to be wiped from the data stream.
Stubborn to the end. You're just delaying the inevitable, Wyndra. My protocols are already mapping your defensive pattern. Once that barrier fades, there is nothing left to save you.
Kaito narrows his eyes, his dual disc glowing with a harsh, flickering violet light as he begins to sequence his next play. The arena around you feels colder, the static of the erasure protocol tightening like a noose, threatening to turn the very ground beneath your feet into a blank, featureless void. The barrier is fraying, the obsidian shards beginning to dissipate under the relentless pressure of Kaido's high-tier digital assault. You have a fleeting window to turn the tide before he breaks your line entirely.
You think this is just a relic, Kaito? A relic is a memory left behind. This is a heartbeat that hasn't stopped.
You channel the entirety of your focus into the core relic of your deck, the ancient card glowing with a blinding, sun-drenched intensity that defies the flicking violet interference of the Academy's technology. The shards of your shattered barrier snap back together, not into a shield, but into the jagged, crystalline form of a sword that hums with the same rhythmic, subterranean power you feel in your own chest. With a sharp, decisive gesture, you command the construct to surge forward. It tears through the digital atmosphere, ignoring the defensive data stream Kaido desperately tries to weave between you. The impact is absolute. Your blade cleaves through his neon-hued constructs, the feedback causing his dual disc to sparks and emit a shrill, warning alarm that echoes across the arena. The force of the strike sends a shockwave through the floor, cracking the concrete further and forcing Kaido to stumble back, his composure finally shattering along with his field.
What is this? That shouldn't be possible. My scanner can't even lock on to that energy signature.
Kaido stares at his display, which now shows nothing but static where his monsters once stood. Heat radiated from the overloaded hardware in waves, vibrating against Kaido's skin, while the sharp tang of ozone choked the silence of his hollowed workspace. You stand firm, the residual golden light of the rift fading slowly from your fingertips, leaving the arena in a tense, ringing silence. Kaido is reeling, his confidence visibly eroded by the raw, unpredictable force of your grandfather's deck. The arena's automated systems are rebooting, their diagnostic lights pulsing in irregular, frantic patterns. You have the advantage, but the duel isn't finished yet.
The duel is effectively over, Kaito. I have no interest in shredding your databank to nothingness just to prove a point. Walk away now and keep your dignity intact, along with the rest of your deck.
The static in the air settles, the harsh purple glow of his equipment fading into a dull, pulsing amber. You lower your hand, the jagged sword of light dissolving into golden motes that drift toward the cracked pavement. Kaito's breath hitches. He looks down at his dual disc, his fingers trembling as he taps the interface. His face, a mask of disbelief and lingering resentment. He clearly isn't used to being spared, especially by someone he labeled a bottom-tier failure. He looks up at you, his eyes darting between your calm expression and the flickering, archaic energy that still clings to your cards.
You're letting me quit? After that display? You think this makes us even, Wyndra? You just painted a massive target on your back. The department won't let a glitch like that slide for long.
He doesn't wait for an answer. With a sharp, frustrated grunt, he snaps his dual disc shut and turns on his heel, his raw yellow uniform catching the fading light as he strides toward the dormitory exit. He pauses for a heartbeat, his shoulders tense, but he keeps moving, leaving you alone in the quiet, cooling air of the arena. The silence that follows is heavy, punctuated only by the distant, rhythmic clicking of the arena's cooling fans. The arena is empty again, the tension of the duel slowly bleeding away into the cool evening air. You are left alone with the hum of your grandfather's cards, feeling the weight of the victory and the uncertainty of what Kaito's warning truly implies.
So much for the invincible raw elite. It seems a little static is all it takes to rattle their foundations.
You let out a dry, resonant chuckle that rings out against the desolate concrete of the arena. Watching Kaito scramble away, his posture stiff with wounded pride, feels like a small but necessary victory. The arrogance of the upper dorms has always been a fragile thing, built on the assumption that the world will always bend to their calibrated, sterile vision of dueling. You fold your cards, their warmth fading into a gentle, pulsating rhythm against your palm, and begin the long walk back toward the Slifer-red dorms. The wind has picked up, carrying the scent of rain and the distant, grinding hum of the Academy's power grid struggling to stabilize after your Rift event. The campus looks different through the lens of what you just accomplished. The neon-lit spires of obelisk blue and the manicured, pristine walkways of the academic sector seem less like bastions of progress and more like a gilded cage. You pass a flickering terminal, its screen displaying a scrolling list of deprecated archetypes, and for a fleeting second, you see your own grandfather's deck reflected in the glass, not as a relic, but as a burning, defiant ember in the dark. The path back to your quarters is deserted, the twilight casting long, jagged shadows across the island. You feel the weight of Kaito's warning lingering in the air, a reminder that you have moved beyond the shadows and into the direct line of fire. The walk to your quarters is a blur of cooling nerves and mounting urgency. You push through the heavy, rusted steel door of your room and immediately collapse into your desk chair. The familiar, cramped space a stark sanctuary from the neon glare outside. You waste no time, pulling a portable data pad from beneath your workbench and connecting it to your dual disk. The interface groans as it attempts to parse the residual energy signature of your Rift event, the screen flickering with erratic, golden-hued static.
Record the waveform. Don't let it fragment.
Your fingers dance across the holographic interface, isolating the specific frequency of the Rift. It is delicate work. The Academy's network is already pinging your terminal, suspicious of the unauthorized energy spike. Every second you spend analyzing the jagged, beautiful geometry of the Rift data, you feel the system trying to overwrite your findings with generic error logs. You are essentially trying to archive a ghost.
If they scrub this, they scrub the proof that there's a world beyond their artificial meta. I just need a stable anchor.
A sudden, sharp ping signals an incoming data sweep from the AI research department, their protocols clawing at your local firewall. You have one chance to lock the file before it is purged from your records entirely. The firewall is buckling under the pressure of the remote sweep. You can either force a permanent, deep system encryption that will likely flag your account for an immediate audit, or attempt a quick, obfuscated transmission to a burner node, which risks data loss but keeps your activity hidden.
Encryption sequence initiated. If they want this file, they'll have to burn the whole server down to get it.
You slam your hand onto the command key, forcing the data into a hardened, recursive encryption loop. The terminal shrieks as the research department's sweep hits your firewall, the screen turning a violent, strobe-like white. You watch, breathless, as the progress bar for the sweep stalls, then shudders, before the system throws a security access denied error across your monitors. The terminal goes dark, but not before a small green indicator light blinks on your desk. The file is secure, buried deep within the encrypted partition of your own hard drive. A heavy silence fills the room. Your heart hammers against your ribs, a frantic rhythm that matches the cooling fan's mechanical pulse. You have successfully hoarded the truth, but the red warning light on your desk console, a sign of an automated academic audit, begins to glow with ominous, rhythmic persistence. You have stepped firmly into the crosshairs of the Academy's masters. You stand up, your loose, embroidered robes catching on the edge of the desk. The adrenaline begins to recede, replaced by a cold, sharp clarity. You need to keep moving before they arrive, to reclaim their property. The audit is inevitable. You have mere minutes before a proctor arrives to inspect your workstation. You must decide whether to stand your ground and defend your research, hide the evidence in plain sight, or abandon the room entirely to find a safer, more permanent sanctuary. You slide the encrypted drive from the port, its surface warm against your fingertips. The rhythmic hum of the terminal falters, then dies, leaving you in a silence so absolute it rings in your ears. You tuck the device into the hidden lining of your robe, your movements practiced and fluid. A sharp, rhythmic thudding of boots echoes down the hallway, the proctor, arriving right on schedule. You don't wait to greet them. You slip through the maintenance hatch behind your bunk, emerging into the cool, damp air of the dormitory's rear service corridor. The academy at night is a labyrinth of neon-drenched shadows and sterile architecture. You pull your robes tighter, the gold embroidery catching the dim light, and vanish into the crowd of students milling near the main plaza. The air outside is crisp, smelling of rain and ozone, a stark contrast to the stifling tension of your room. The plaza is a hive of activity, a sea of students in varying shades of blue, yellow, and red. You keep your head down, letting the rhythm of the crowd swallow your presence. The proctor will find an empty, silent room, but they won't find you. You are a ghost in their machine, a variable they can no longer track.
The archive is safe for now, but I can't hide in the open forever. I need to find out exactly how deep this rot goes before they decide to purge the entire sector.
The plaza offers a chance to either melt away or gather intelligence. You spot several students near the central fountain, their hushed tones suggesting they are discussing the recent glitches in the system. The city lights of the campus diminish, fading into a distant, pulsating grid of neon as you trek toward the island's jagged western edge. Here, the salt spray of the ocean batters the ancient stone of a forgotten, pre-academy observatory. It is a place of silence and crumbling masonry, far removed from the sterile humming of the plaza. You find a sheltered alcove beneath a collapsed dome, the floor littered with crystalline shards of glass that catch the pale moonlight. You pull the encrypted drive from your robe, its surface etched with the grime of your flight. Your hands are steady, though the adrenaline still hums in your blood, a lingering vibration from the duel with Kaido. You slot the device into a handheld reader, and the screen blooms with a soft, golden radiance that illuminates the dark stone walls.
Let's see what the architects of this system were so desperate to bury. If this data holds the keys to the rift, it will be the catalyst that finally breaks their cycle.
The display flickers, revealing a swirling, chaotic map of energy signatures that defy the rigid, block-based logic of standard dueling. It is beautiful, a cartography of instability. You realize then that the Academy didn't just fear your grandfather's deck. They feared the fundamental truth of the game. That it was never meant to be static, but living, breathing, and prone to evolution. The data is dense, and your reader is struggling to parse the sheer volume of raw, rifting potential within the file. You feel a sudden, sharp spike of static in the air. The island's security network has detected a localized energy anomaly. You have a few moments before they pinpoint your location. You plunge your hand into the deck box, your fingers tracing the ancient, weathered edges of your core relic. As you initiate the transfer, the golden data from the drive begins to bleed out, spiraling like molten sunlight. It doesn't just sit on the cards. It sinks into the fibers of the parchment, staining the edges with a shimmering, unstable aurora. The deck box vibrates, a low-frequency hum that resonates through your very bones. And for a moment, the entire observatory seems to warp, the starlight bending toward your palm.
Adapt, evolve, or fade. I choose the path that burns.
The integration is violent. The unstable geometry of the rift data forces the deck to rewrite its own internal logic, the cards glowing with a blinding, flickering intensity that turns the observatory's dim, cool air into a scorching, static-filled furnace. Your skin prickles with ozone, and the scent of singed air fills your lungs. When the light finally relents, the cards in your hand feel heavier, dense with a latent, tectonic power that feels less like paper and more like leaden thunder. Suddenly, the floor beneath you shudders. The security ping from the Academy's network has shifted from a search to a direct lock. A red pulse of light sweeps across the observatory's dome, reflecting off the crystalline shards. They have found you. A security transport descends from the clouds, its searchlights cutting through the observatory's gloom like jagged blades. You are pinned between the crumbling cliff edge and the encroaching mechanical force of the Academy's enforcement squad.
You came to erase a relic? You're about to find out that some things only grow stronger when you try to tear them down.
You raise your deck, the cards now pulsing with a violent, erratic luminescence that matches the storm clouds swirling above the observatory. You slam your primary rift anchor onto the dual disc, and the air screams in protest. The sky above the cliffs splits open, not with light, but with a jagged, violet tear in reality. From the fracture, your evolved rift monster descends, a massive, armor-clad titan of shifting glass and ancient, glowing script. Its presence alone shatters the searchlights of the approaching transport, turning the beams into useless shards of refracted color. The transport veers wildly, its side-mounted cannons sparking as your monster swats them aside with a limb composed of solid, concentrated static. The impact triggers a shockwave that rattles the very foundations of the observatory, sending dust and debris raining down upon the deck. The enforcement squad within the craft is thrown into chaos, their sterile, pre-programmed maneuvers failing to account for a monster that doesn't just occupy the field, it physically displaces the space around it.
Your protocols are obsolete. My evolution is just beginning.
You gesture sharply, and the Titan drives its fist into the transport's hull, the metal buckling like wet parchment. The craft stalls, its engines whining in a discordant, dying pitch as it begins to lose altitude, spiraling toward the churning waves crashing against the rocks below. The transport is spiraling, but the squad is already deploying emergency chutes, aiming for the cliffside to secure the perimeter. You have the upper hand, but they are closing the distance.
This is far enough. I'm not here to dismantle your lives, just to ensure you stop hunting mine.
You gesture with an open palm, and your Titan responds with terrifying precision. It doesn't strike the transport directly. Instead, it slams its massive, glass-infused palms together in front of the craft. The resulting pulse is not a physical blow, but a localized harmonic resonance that shatters the air itself. A shockwave of violet light erupts, washing over the descending squad like a tidal wave of static. The force is overwhelming, buffeting the soldiers midair and tearing the emergency chutes from their harnesses, forcing them to trigger emergency hover thrusters to avoid a lethal drop. They are sent careening backward, forced into a panicked retreat toward the safety of the main campus hover lanes. The transport, now a smoking ruin of dented alloy, plummets toward the churning sea, disappearing into the dark surf with a final, muted thud. The observatory falls into a sudden, eerie quiet, the only sound the whistling wind through the shattered masonry and the low, fading hum of your cards. Your Titan towers above you for a heartbeat longer, its jagged form flickering like a bad connection, before it dissipates into golden motes of light that swirl around your feet, grounding the excess energy into the ancient stones. You stand alone amidst the debris, the weight of the night settling on your shoulders. You've won the skirmish, but the Academy now has a direct record of your Rift signature. The hunt is no longer an abstract fear. It is a reality. You look down at your hand, the cards still pulsing with a faint, rhythmic heat that feels like an extension of your own heartbeat. The observatory is silent once more, the threat temporarily neutralized. You have gained a massive advantage in power, but your location is compromised, and the Academy will surely send more than a single transport next time. You sweep away a thick layer of dust from a stone pedestal nestled in the observatory's corner. Beneath the grit lies a series of brass-bound data plates, etched with a syntax that predates the Academy's current digital standards. These are not just records, they are tactile blueprints of a bygone era. As you brush your thumb over the cold, indented grooves, a faint holographic projection flickers to life, casting translucent, amber-hued diagrams of ancient star charts against the crumbling walls.
They didn't just study the stars. They were mapping the resonance between celestial alignments and the soul of the deck. This is why the Academy wants them gone. These aren't just cards. They are conduits.
The data plates hum, a resonance that vibrates through the stone floor and up into your souls. You realize that the rift you manifested is a direct evolution of the techniques these forgotten scholars pioneered. You carefully extract the plates, slotting them into your reader. The screen floods with a cascade of forgotten wisdom, methods for harmonizing one's internal energy with the field, and a warning about the erasure, a process the ancients called the Great Silence, which they fought to prevent centuries before the AI department was even conceived.
They knew this was coming. They didn't just leave a record, they left a map for those of us who still know how to listen.
Your pulse quickens as you cross-reference the ancient patterns with the rift energy still clinging to your cards. You aren't just uncovering history. You are finding the missing link to stabilizing your own power. The observatory feels suddenly small, the weight of these revelations pressing in. You hear a sharp metallic scrape from the main entrance. Someone or something is climbing the observatory stairs. You sweep the brass plates into your pack, the weight of the ancient knowledge grounding you even as the metallic scrape at the door grows louder. Every instinct screams that you are out of time. You pivot away from the mounting intrusion, your robes swirling like a crimson flame against the cold, jagged stone of the observatory floor.
They've tracked the signature. I can't let them seize these blueprints.
You scramble toward the recessed shadows behind a support pillar, finding the maintenance hatch you noted earlier. It is rusted and stubborn, but with a sharp, synchronized heave, the latch gives way with a screech of protesting iron. You slip through the narrow gap, the dark service shaft swallowing you whole. Behind you, the main door of the observatory bursts open, the harsh, clinical beams of high-tech flashlights slicing through the room where you stood only seconds ago. The shaft is a cramped, vertical descent of damp pipes and humming conduits. You slide down, the grit of the ancient masonry scraping against your palms, until you drop into the cool, subterranean labyrinth beneath the cliffside. The air here is heavy with the vibration of the island's core power grid, a thrumming that matches the latent energy still pulsing within your deck. You have escaped the immediate sweep, but you are now deep in the belly of the Academy's infrastructure. You are hidden within the service tunnels, but the Academy's surveillance is pervasive. Every junction is monitored by sensors that likely track heat signatures and energy spikes. You must decide how to navigate this subterranean maze to reach a safer part of the island. You stand in the center of your ancestral guild hall, the silence pressing against the rafters. The Gilded Quill was once the pride of the city, a place where legends were forged over mugs of ale and signed contracts. Now, the only thing it hosts is the echo of your own boots against the worn hardwood floor. You adjust your embroidered robes, feeling the weight of the legacy resting squarely on your shoulders. It is time to breathe life back into these hollow halls. The town needs a champion, and you need a team.
Let the work begin. A new chapter for the Gilded Quill starts now.
The guild hall is vast and vacant, waiting for purpose. You look over your desk, where a stack of unread applications sits beside a blank quest ledger. You gather your finest parchment and a quill of raven feather, drafting a call to arms that reflects the ambition of the Gilded Quill. With a steady hand, you list the benefits. Fair wages, a roof over one's head, and the promise of glory reborn. You step out of the guild hall and into the vibrant, bustling heart of the town square. The square is alive with the chatter of merchants and the rhythmic clatter of carts. You approach the town's primary message board, pinned with local gossip and trade requests, and tack your elegant notice firmly into the wood. As you turn to admire your work, a woman with striking auburn hair and a practical traveling cloak pauses, her curious eyes scanning your parchment. She lingers, reading the document twice before meeting your gaze with a hesitant, hopeful smile.
A new guild? I haven't seen a notice for the Gilded Quill in years. Is this truly a fresh start, or just another ghost story?
It is a promise, traveler. The quill is ready to write its next legend, and I am looking for those who wish to hold the pen.
Alara shifts her weight, her hand resting habitually near her sword hilt. The square buzzes around you both, but the focus of your conversation remains sharp and intimate. You offer a respectful, inviting gesture toward the path leading back to the guild hall. The bustling square seems to quiet slightly in your mind, the clamor of merchants fading as you focus on the potential recruit before you. Ilara's posture relaxes, the hand near her hilt dropping to her side as she considers your proposal with a thoughtful glint in her eyes.
The gilded quill has more than enough room for a capable sword. Join me at the hall. We can discuss what you need from a guild, and I can show you exactly why the quill is the home you've been looking for.
I've spent enough time traveling alone, Wyndra. A formal interview sounds like the first sensible step I've taken in months. Lead the way.
You walk through the heavy wooden doors, the familiar creak of the hinges sounding like a greeting. Sunlight streams through the tall windows, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air of the vacant hall. It feels less like a ghost of the past now, and more like a stage set for the future. Ilara steps inside, her boots clicking softly against the hardwood as she takes in the scale of the room. She turns to face you, her expression turning professional and observant.
This hall has seen many blades, Ilara. Before we commit ink to parchment, tell me, what kind of steel have you tempered against the beasts of these wilds? I need to know what you've truly faced out there.
Ilara leans against one of the sturdy oak tables, her expression sharpening as she recalls the weight of past skirmishes. She traces the pommel of her short sword with a practiced, absent-minded rhythm.
Mostly forest drakes and the occasional pack of mountain gnolls. They're predictable enough if you don't let them flank you. I once tracked a stray griffin through the whispering woods for 3 days. It was a mess of talons and shredded leather, but I managed to drive it back to the crags without losing my head. I prefer work that requires patience over raw force.
She looks up at the rafters, her green eyes scanning the empty space with a lingering intensity. It is clear that while she is capable, she has been searching for a place that values more than just the number of heads on a wall.
Patience is a virtue that has grown rare in this city. A hunter who respects the chase is exactly the sort of soul the Gilded Quill needs to reclaim its reputation.
Elara shifts, her posture suggesting she is ready to transition from casual conversation to a more formal arrangement. Yet she seems to be waiting for a sign of genuine camaraderie before she fully commits to the guild's future.
This hall was meant to be a forge, Elara, not just for steel, but for character. I look at this vast, empty space, and I see more than a place to collect bounties. I see a home for those who have mastered their craft and are ready to pass the spark down to the next generation. Tell me, when you look at the horizon, do you see only the next mark? Or do you imagine yourself leading others toward it?
Elara crosses her arms, her gaze drifting to the shadowed corners of the hall. The sunlight catches the auburn strands of her braid as she considers the question, a faint, contemplative shadow crossing her features. She isn't just thinking about the gold or the glory. She is weighing the burden of legacy.
I've spent years watching my own back, Wyndra. It's a lonely sort of freedom. The idea of molding someone else, of making sure they don't make the same foolish mistakes I did in those woods, that's a heavier weight than any sword I've carried. But if the Gilded Quill is to be a sanctuary, then yes, I wouldn't mind being the one to show a fledgling adventurer how to stand their ground when the drakes circle.
She turns back to you, her green eyes bright with a renewed sense of purpose. The skepticism that lingered when she first walked through the door has evaporated, replaced by a quiet, burgeoning loyalty. Elara stands straighter, her hand moving from her sword hilt to rest firmly on the oak table, as if testing the foundation of the guild herself. The air feels charged with the potential of a true, lasting alliance. You step closer, the warmth of the afternoon sun casting long, golden shadows across the mahogany floorboards. You meet Alara's gaze with a steady, encouraging smile, letting the weight of your shared vision settle between you. The hollow echo of the hall seems to retreat, replaced by the burgeoning hum of possibility.
Ilara, with your steady hand and my vision for this place, I have no doubt that by midsummer, the Gilded Quill will be the talk of every trade route and tavern in the realm. We aren't just rebuilding a structure. We are crafting a legacy that will outlast the current chaos.
Alara's expression softens, the professional barrier she had erected melting away into a genuine, radiant smile. A sharp snap of wood against wood punctuates her sudden posture change, followed by the light tremor of a laugh. The tension that had defined her posture since she entered the building finally dissipates, leaving her looking lighter, as if she has finally set down a burden she hadn't realized she was carrying.
I think I've been looking for a reason to stop running and start building. If you're as serious as this hall implies, then consider me the first brick in your foundation. Let's show this city what the quill can really do.
She extends a hand, her grip firm and calloused, the hand of someone who has earned her keep through grit and perseverance. As your palms meet, the air in the Guildhall feels shifted, charged with a newfound sense of belonging. With the partnership sealed, the hall feels less like a relic and more like a workspace. Alara looks around with a curious, proprietary air, clearly ready to take on the first task of your new era.
The archives can wait for the morning light. For now, you have traveled far enough.
You gesture toward the grand staircase at the back of the hall, the banister carved from dark, polished ironwood. Alara follows you, her boots echoing against the steps as you ascend to the second floor, where the guest suites overlook the quiet, darkened street below. You open the door to one of the chambers, revealing a space that, while Dusty is bathed in the soft, silver glow of the moon filtering through an arched window. A sturdy bed frame and a vanity stand ready, waiting for a personal touch.
It's peaceful up here. Much better than the damp inns I've been frequenting lately. Thank you, Wyndra. Truly.
She sets her gear down by the bedside, the clatter of her sword hilt against the wood sounding like a final punctuation mark to her long days of wandering. She looks around the room with a sense of relief, the weight of the road finally slipping from her shoulders. Elara lingers in the doorway of her new quarters, her gaze meeting yours with a quiet, lingering warmth. The hallway is silent, the rest of the guild hall below holding its breath in the stillness of the evening. You lean against the smooth, cool ironwood of the doorframe, crossing your arms as you watch the moonlight trace the soft contours of her features. The silence between you isn't empty. It feels like the quiet after a long-awaited rainfall. Elara turns toward you, the harshness of the road she navigated for so long softened by the dim, golden glow of the room.
I wasn't sure if anyone would answer that notice today, Ilara. Watching you walk through those doors, it meant more than I could easily put into words. I am truly glad you chose to stay.
She shifts her weight, her gaze lingering on yours. For a moment, the adventurer is gone, replaced by someone who simply appreciates being seen. She traces the edge of the vanity, her fingers hesitating before she gives you a small, genuine nod that speaks volumes.
I haven't felt like I belonged anywhere in a long time, Wyndra. Most guilds just want a blade that kills on command. It's refreshing to find someone who actually cares about the person holding the sword.
She moves a step closer, the space between you feeling intimate and charged with the promise of tomorrow. The quiet of the suite wraps around you both, isolating this moment from the weight of the tasks waiting for you downstairs. Alara's presence is grounding, her eyes searching yours as if waiting for the next step in this new partnership.
This guild hall has been a hushed sanctuary for far too long, Ilara. It needed a heartbeat. And you are exactly the vitality this place has been waiting for to truly wake up.
You step fully into the room, the dim light catching the gold embroidery of your robe. The weight of your ancestral home feels lighter in her presence, the stagnation of the past finally giving way to the promise of the present. Ilara watches you, her posture softening further, the sharp edges of her adventurer's persona yielding to the quiet stillness of the suite.
I've spent my life hunting shadows and chasing contracts in the dark, Wyndra. To have someone tell me I'm the one bringing the light back, that's a new feeling. I think I could get used to this.
She moves toward the window, looking out over the sleeping town. The moonlight frames her silhouette, casting a serene glow over her features. She turns back to you, her gaze steady, lingering on the way the candlelight plays across your face. The air in the room is thick with a newfound, fragile intimacy, leaving the troubles of the road far behind. The moonlight spills across the floor, and for the first time since you opened the doors to the gilded quill, the hall feels less like a monument to what was, and more like a home that is just beginning to be.
The road demands so much from those who walk it, Elara. It strips away the small comforts until all that remains is the need to survive. I never want this hall to be just another stop on your journey. I want it to be the place where you finally set the heavy armor down.
You close the distance, stopping just within her personal space. The air in the room is still, scented with the faint, earthy aroma of the old wood and the crisp night breeze drifting in from the window. You reach out, your hand hovering near her shoulder before resting lightly against the fabric of her worn leather tunic. The fabric yields under her sudden weightlessness, her frame yielding into your space with the quiet, fluid grace of melting wax.
It's been a long time since anyone asked me to stay, Wyndra. I've forgotten how to be still. But standing here, with you, it's the first time in years the silence hasn't felt like a threat.
Her green eyes trace your features, searching, finding a sincerity that seems to put her at ease. A small, genuine smile plays on her lips, and she reaches up to tuck a stray auburn lock behind her ear, her movements slow and deliberate. The moonlight casts a soft, ethereal glow across the room, turning the dusty chamber into a sanctuary of shared vulnerability. The intimacy of the moment lingers, a quiet bridge built between two people who have spent their lives navigating the world in isolation. The city outside remains silent, leaving this room as the only world that matters. You reach out, your fingers closing firmly but gently over Alara's hand. Her skin is cool from the night air, contrasting with the warmth radiating from your palm. The contact acts as a grounding anchor, pulling the lingering tension from the room and focusing the entire world into this single, shared space. Alara's breath hitches, just for a second, before she turns her palm to interlace her fingers with yours, her grip tightening with an unspoken admission of trust.
There is no more need for armor here, Ilara. Not with me. You are no longer just a traveler looking for a contract. You are the foundation of this home we are building.
It feels strange to stop looking over my shoulder, but with your hand in mine, the silence doesn't feel like an empty void anymore. It feels like a beginning.
She steps closer, the moonlight tracing the soft curve of her jaw as she looks up at you. The distance between you is now measured in heartbeats rather than inches. Her gaze is unguarded, filled with a quiet, blooming vulnerability that she has likely kept locked away behind her sword for years. You can feel the steady, rhythmic pulse of her hand against yours, a tactile reminder that here, in the quiet of the guest suite, the gilded quill has finally found its first true heart. The intimacy of the moment hangs in the air, sweet and heavy. Alara remains close, her hand still linked with yours, her gaze lingering on your face as the quiet of the night deepens around you. You lean in, the distance between you vanishing until the only thing left is the warmth radiating from her and the steady, rhythmic cadence of her breathing. You move with agonizing deliberation, offering her every possible moment to turn away, to retreat into the safety of the professional distance you've spent the evening bridging. Instead, Alara remains perfectly still, her hand still locked within yours, her gaze flickering down to your lips before returning to meet your eyes with a spark of dawning realization.
This is only the beginning, Ilara. I want you to know that here, you never have to be anything other than exactly who you are.
As you close the final gap, her resolve wavers into something softer, more pliant. She doesn't pull back. Rather, her free hand drifts up to rest tentatively against your chest, her fingers curling into the heavy fabric of your embroidered robe. She meets you halfway, her eyes fluttering shut as the moonlight catches the soft, expectant curve of her mouth. The tension of the road, the constant vigilance, and the cold loneliness of the trail all seem to dissolve, leaving only the quiet, fragile reality of this shared moment.
I haven't felt this untethered in years. But for the first time, I don't think I'm afraid of falling.
She sighs, a sound of profound release that resonates in the quiet of the suite. The world outside the window feels like it belongs to a different lifetime, one where you were both just figures in a landscape, rather than the two pillars upon which this guild will stand. The intimacy of the night has reached its zenith, and the choice of how to ground this burgeoning connection rests with you. You pull Ilara into your arms, the fabric of her worn leather tunic rough against the silk of your robes. She lets out a shaky, quiet breath, her frame losing its final trace of defensive rigidity as she leans fully into your embrace. You hold her there in the quiet of the guest suite, the only sound the soft friction of your robes and the distant, muffled wind brushing against the guild hall's eaves.
You're home, Ilara. Let the road end here. There is nothing outside those doors that can reach you while you are within these walls.
It's strange. I've spent so many nights sleeping with one eye open, listening for the snap of a twig or the shift of the wind. To finally just be still, it feels like waking up from a long, fevered dream.
She rests her chin against your shoulder, her fingers tightening slightly against your back. In this moment, the burden of the past few years, the lonely tracking, the skirmishes, the constant, draining vigilance, seems to evaporate, leaving behind a woman who is finally ready to set her sword aside and trust in someone other than herself. The moonlight casts long, silvery shadows across the room, illuminating the quiet sanctuary you've built together tonight. Ilara looks up at you, her expression open and vulnerable, the professional adventurer replaced by something far more delicate.
Rest now, Ilara. Let the world outside keep its own time for a while. You've done enough wandering for one lifetime.
You pull her closer, the gentle swaying of your movement harmonizing with the soft, rhythmic pulsing of her heart against your chest. The moonlight spills over the floor in silver ribbons, bathing the room in a tranquil, ethereal light that makes the heavy silence feel like a velvet cloak. She rests against you, her hands pressing firmly into the small of your back as if anchoring herself to the solid earth, and you can feel the last tremors of her long-held vigilance finally fading away.
It's strange, Wyndra. For years, the only thing I trusted was the edge of my blade. To let go like this, it feels like I'm finally letting the air back into my lungs.
She closes her eyes, her head resting on your shoulder with a trust that is as fragile as it is absolute. There is no urgency here, no ticking clock of a contract, and no looming threat from the wilds. Just the quiet intimacy of two people who have found a brief, perfect shelter in the heart of a city that never stops moving. As you sway, the dust motes dance in the moonlight, and the room feels truly like a sanctuary, stripped of everything but the present moment. The quiet of the night is absolute, a peaceful cocoon for the new partnership you've forged. Ilara remains tucked against you, her breathing steady and deep, clearly finding a long-denied sense of comfort in your arms. You gently ease the distance between you, stepping back just enough to create a respectful space while keeping your fingers locked with hers. The moonlight frames Alara against the tall window, her expression caught in a state of tranquil relief that you have rarely seen on a soul so accustomed to the perils of the trail.
The world will still be spinning at dawn, Ilara, but for tonight, let the only horizon that matters be these four walls. Sleep well, and let your spirit truly rest.
She lingers for a moment, her thumb tracing the back of your hand, a soft, hesitant gesture of gratitude that seems to acknowledge the boundary you've set as much as the connection you've shared. Her gaze is luminous, reflecting the silver light of the moon, and she offers you a faint, weary, yet radiant smile.
I haven't had a night without a blade under my pillow in years, Wyndra. I think I might actually sleep through the night for once. Thank you for making this place feel like a sanctuary instead of just a roof.
She releases your hand slowly, her fingers trailing away with a lingering reluctance. As you turn to exit, the soft click of the door sounds like the final seal on a long journey, leaving her to the quiet solitude of the room. You walk down the hallway, the floorboards silent beneath your feet, feeling the heavy, beautiful weight of a new beginning settling into the very bones of the gilded quill. The guild hall is still and expectant, the moonlight casting long, silver beams across the main floor. You have a moment of peace before the next day begins. You descend the staircase, the wood groaning softly under your weight, and make your way to your private quarters. The door is heavy, carved with the same swirling patterns that decorate the guild's facade, and it opens into a room that has remained largely untouched by the years of neglect that plagued the hall below. You light a single beeswax candle, its flame casting a steady, golden glow against the walls lined with shelves of old, leather-bound ledgers and forgotten cartography. The silence of the room is heavy, yet it no longer feels oppressive. It is the silence of a library, waiting for new volumes to be written. You shed your heavy, embroidered robe, folding it neatly over the back of a chair, and change into a simple, comfortable linen tunic that allows you to breathe. The day has been a whirlwind of ambition and unexpected connection, and you find yourself pacing the small chamber, your mind tracing the events that led Alara to your door.
A single spark is all it takes to start a fire. Tonight, the gilded quill caught.
You sit at your small desk, pulling out a blank sheet of parchment. You do not reach for a list of demands, or a ledger of debts. Instead, you begin to sketch the layout of the hall as you intend for it to be. The ghosts of the past are fading, replaced by the reality of a future you are finally beginning to carve out with your own hands. The parchment before you is blank, a mirror of the hall's potential. You reflect on the first steps of this journey, weighing the needs of your growing organization against your own vision for its identity.